Hezbollah launches its first attack on Israel since the truce collapsed, as Prime Minister Netanyahu aggressively restarts full-scale war operations. After Israel's devastating 100 attacks in just 10 minutes, Hezbollah unleashes its first major retaliation from Lebanese positions. Iran joins the escalating conflict, shocking the U.S. by immediately shutting down the vital Strait of Hormuz once again. The U.S. insists Lebanon was never discussed in ceasefire talks, raising questions of whether they betrayed Iran or got fooled by Pakistan.
I think the Iranians thought that the ceasefire included Lebanon, and it just didn't. We never made that promise.
No relief comes for Israelis as widespread panic hits amid fresh waves of intense Hezbollah rocket fire raining down. Tensions flared as Hezbollah and Israel clashed afresh while the America-Iran ceasefire remained fragile, raising doubts about the truce's stability. On April 9th, Hezbollah claimed responsibility for fresh rocket attacks on northern Israel, signaling a rapid return to cross-border hostilities. The latest assault marked Hezbollah's first major strike since the U.S. publicly announced a 2-week truce with Iran, technically outside the direct scope of the ceasefire. Hezbollah said the rocket specifically targeted the Manara settlement in northern Israel, describing it as a reprisal against what it called recent Israeli violations. The group stated it was retaliating to what it described as Israeli violations of the broader understanding between Iran and the U.S., even though the deal was not meant to cover Lebanon. Hezbollah accused Israel of launching around 100 strikes on Lebanon within a 10-minute window on April 8, calling the intensity disproportionate and indiscriminate. In its statement, Hezbollah warned that its response would continue as long as it perceives Israeli U.S. aggression against Lebanon and its population to persist. Israeli media reported that at least one rocket fired from Lebanon was intercepted by Israeli air defense systems, reducing the immediate impact of the barrage. Meanwhile, strikes across Lebanon have reportedly killed over 110 civilians and wounded more than 800 others, according to Lebanese health ministry sources. Both U.S. and Israeli leaders have stated that operations against Hezbollah fall outside the scope of the America-Iran truce, treating Lebanon as a separate conflict. Iranian news outlets said the Strait of Hormuz was shut again, framing the move as a direct reaction to what Tehran sees as continued Israeli military pressure. The confusion over whether the truce includes Lebanon or is limited to Iran-U.S. strikes has sparked speculation that mediator Pakistan may have mishandled or miscommunicated the indirect talks.
I think the Iranians thought that the ceasefire included Lebanon, and it just didn't. We never made that promise. We never indicated that was going to be the case. What we said is that the ceasefire would be focused on Iran, and the ceasefire would be focused on America's allies, both Israel and the Gulf Arab states. Now, that said, the Israelis, as I understand it, again, I'm supposed to get a fuller report when I get on the plane, have actually offered to be, frankly, to check themselves a little bit in Lebanon because they want to make sure that our negotiation is successful.
Less than 24 hours after the U.S. announced a ceasefire with Iran, Iranian state media reported that the Strait of Hormuz had been shut down again, reversing a key condition of the truce. The complete and safe reopening of the strait was President Trump's stated condition for the 2-week ceasefire, tying the pause in U.S. strikes directly to the free passage of oil shipments. The stunning move came less than 24 hours after the U.S. and Israel publicly backed the truce talks with Iran on March 7th to 8th, raising immediate questions about the deal's stability. The closure happened despite earlier indications that Iran would reopen the vital shipping route as part of the broader agreement, at least for the duration of the 2-week pause. On the night of March 8th to 9th, Iran's press TV reported that an oil tanker was turned away near the strait, underscoring the tightening of maritime controls in the region. The tanker, named Aurora, made an abrupt 180-degree turn at sea and instead returned toward the Persian Gulf rather than continuing through the strait. The U.S. government has stated that the Aurora is a sanctioned vessel, alleging it is used to transport Iranian oil outside the usual commercial channels. According to reports citing the semi-official Fars news agency, Iran's decision to close the strait was framed as a response to Israeli military operations in Lebanon, not solely to the ceasefire terms. Israel has intensified its strikes on Lebanon in recent days, saying it is targeting Hezbollah positions and infrastructure linked to Iranian support. Reports indicate that Israel launched around 100 suspected strikes on Lebanese territory within a 10-minute window on April 8, suggesting a concentrated, high-intensity campaign. These strikes in Lebanon have reportedly killed over 110 civilians and wounded more than 800 others, drawing sharp condemnation from humanitarian groups. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance have both stated that the America-Iran truce does not apply to Lebanon. The situation has highlighted growing disparities between the sides over whether the ceasefire includes the Lebanon front or only applies to Iran directly. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance have both stated that the America-Iran truce does not apply to Lebanon, treating Hezbollah as a separate conflict. In his public remarks, Netanyahu also warned that Israel could resume full-scale war with Iran at any moment in order to complete the original war goals.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that look, you will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest news makers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the U.S. will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry ghats.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HT videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.